natin mag-convert kayo ng ADO. Nakita nyo, may conversion. Tapos ADO din, record set, tapos data set, may diagram. Okay. This one, bonus na to. Okay, bonus na to kung something you may like to look at in the future. Okay. So, have you heard of ORM? Okay. So kung medyo you're an object-oriented world, mayabang yung mga nasa object-oriented world eh. Tapos inaaway niya na sa database. Alam mo, ang database, lalagyan lang yan ng objects. Lalagyan lang ng objects, nahihirapan pa kami. Okay? Tapos, ito naman mga database, ito mga OOP na po. Walang kwenta naman ito. Lagi-lagyan sila ng objects, hindi maganda yung pagkagawa ng table. No? Tingnan mo, kaya performance, masabog. Kami mag-aayos. Hindi tama yung mag-index, hindi maganda yung tamang relationship, babagal-bagal, di ba? Okay? So there's always a mismatch, not only in the actual professionals, yung database, saka yung developers. In terms of theories and concepts, they are totally different. Kasi relational data models, tabular, etc., they are mathematical. And objects is parang hierarchical and the objects. So there's this what we call an impedance mismatch. Okay? It's an impedance mismatch. So somehow, the best way to go around that is, let's keep our world in our own realm and come up with what we call object relational mapping. So come up with a mapping to map object. Yes.
Pero pwede ka mag-model ng database based on ORM. I mean, ORM, halimbawa person class, person type, something.
So from object, so entity framework, you could start with objects. It will you can generate a database based on the objects, classes. May ganung features, especially now. Okay. But usually, being the traditional guys, siyempre, who are the traditional guys dito? Siyempre, unang deliverable is ER diagram, di ba? ER diagram, di ba?
Entity.
ER diagram, saka na yung object classes, di ba?
Relationship.
Kasi mga boss mo na, mas may edad pa sa'yo. Ano may class? First class, second class. Okay, so, but entity framework has been there since the 70s. Baby pa lang ako ng 70s. Okay. Now, but in the modern world, okay, for those database practitioners, I'll tell you now that the invasion of the object won't happen. Very, very stable relational. There was been object-oriented na database. That was my thesis for object-oriented databases. And that was around 1993. I made a prediction then. My prediction then was object-oriented databases will not take off. But there will be object-based
databases.
The conventional relational databases will come up with object-based features. Okay, so until now, you see that. Right? Object-oriented databases are not yet there. Probably will not, but it now has object-based object features. Okay, yung mga block, for example, ngayon, may XML na yung data type yung ano. Okay, may CLR na, .NET CLR. SQL CLR. Okay, but of course, internal relational data model is still strong and probably won't go away in the future. Okay, now, so, daldal ko, no? So, ano yung ginagawa ng entity framework? So, entity framework, kasi di ba yung data table, yung data set, table-oriented siya, data table, di ba? So, sa entity framework, you could, very similar yung experience niya. You could start with tables, drag mo, and you say, ito yung magiging classes, or you could create classes, then to create database for you. Okay? But the thing there is, it's easier to use. Okay? So, you could just update you load the data, you update the classes, the contents of the classes, contents of the objects, update the relationships, blah, 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 and just call save changes. When you call save changes, all the magic happens. Mag-delete, insert, update mo, will be done miraculously. Okay? Yep. Okay? So let me show you. Let me show you the world. Shining, shimmering, splendid. Okay. So,
Parang movies, 8 years
Aladdin.
old na.
kung luma na yung movie, hindi nila nakuha. Ibang kurang lang nakakita.
Aladdin. 5 years old pa lang.
5 years. Okay. So, what I did was, let's run this first. Diba yung demo natin, I came up with a cute version of that same application. Okay? Kasi mas cute siya kasi colored na. Blue, yellow, may red. Yeah. So, para may context tayo. Okay. Diba? So, ito yun. We have an EDMX. Okay, yung EDMX, we just drag the tables that we require. Parang dataset na designer, di ba? Since yung sa sample na yun, isa lang table.
Ayun yung entity framework. EDMX.
EDMX yung extension. So, ang problema natin, problema ko dito sa sample na isa lang yung table. Ang hirap kasi mag-drag-drop ng isang table ng paulit-ulit, di ba? Isang table lang. So, yan ang sample. I'll show you another sample later. But the thing is, you just drag-drop the table here. Okay? So, it will now create a class called address. Okay? So, yung collection of addresses. So, it will just create a class representation of your table. Okay? What it does is, you could access this thing via what you call a data context. So, in data context, parang yun yung root class mo. Parang, uy, data context, pare, pahingi ng address. Okay? Whatever is in those things in the database, you could ask for it. Okay? You could ask for it by saying, give me the first address that you could find. Give me the address that has the last name XYZ. Okay? Meron ganung feature. Now, the beauty of this data binding thing, I love data binding, is,
Yan, yung walang code.
okay, the beauty of this data binding is, I could create a binding. Alam yung data binding, di ba, sa ano? Di ba, naglagay tayong control. So, dito, multi-level yung data binding sa VB, no? Hindi ko lang kung makakover sa UI. So, magba-binding source. Excuse me, binding source. Yung binding source ko is this one. ADO address. Okay? So, ito yun. Okay? Yung sa loob, addresses. Okay?
So yung configure na.
Okay? So, in data context, address entities. Diba? So, anything that you define there, under what called address entities. Okay, so address entities, give me an address. Give me one. Okay? But since isang table lang, add tayo dyan isa. Okay? Then, binding navigator. The binding navigator is this cute little guy down here. See the color? Okay? Ganyan. Tapos, what does the code look like? V-code. It's almost the same. Diba? Except for what? Dun sa kanila may add, edit, update, delete, diba? Ngayon wala na. I just call save changes. Okay? As I traverse, diba, left, right, I could insert, update, delete, etc. These things are done in memory. Okay? So once I'm done, so when I want to close, okay, am I done? Are you really done? Let me check. Do you have any pending changes? If there are pending changes, let me ask you, do you want to save your changes? I say yes. I'll just save those changes. That's it. Bye-bye. It will perform all the necessary inserts, updates, deletes for you. Okay? So I could change this. Okay? Or let's say add. Okay? Then let's say exit. Exit natin. Save changes? Yes. Okay? So just to prove, hindi ko na-test to. Sabi ko just to prove that it actually got saved. Let's see. Did it get saved? Diba? Okay? Next. Questions? So how many here yung use DNA? Alam niyo yung DNA, Microsoft DNA? Kasi yun ang in thing after the VB, di ba? Tapos when you started, for VB developers, when you started to put in structure, right? Into their end-tier application, Microsoft promoted what we call distributed network architecture. Okay, so if you follow that map, data access layer, business layer, web, etc., it would probably be easier for you to migrate those things because you follow a certain pattern. And if you're interested, have you heard of the pet shop? I think it's a pet shop. There's a sample na if you go to the VB resource page, alam niyo yung VB resource page, VB6 resource page sa NSDN? Nandun yung book. May book doon about migrating your VB6 to VB.NET. Are you aware of that? Alam mo niyo yung resource. So, you could download a free ebook discussing all the things that you need to consider when migrating to VB6 to VB.NET. If you also search, I'll compile those links and send it over para ma-post nila. Then you could also find, I think there's a pet shop or, no, FM Stocks. If you are very active during that time developing VB6 applications, one of the reference applications that Microsoft was showing off, or as a showcase, if you're going to build into your application, was FM Stocks application. So it was built around ASP using DNA architecture. Then there's also this site where they migrated the FM Stocks to .NET. So it has some discussions there. Okay? So to continue, so far we've covered the basics, then give you an idea what entity framework is. So we are now looking at probably other ways to expose your data. In this case, we're using data services to expose your data to the world. Okay, to the world. So have you heard of web services? Web services? Yes. Okay. So in a way, we will be creating a WCF wrapper around the entity framework. So we've seen the entity framework, right? Okay. So you may want to create a WCF service on top of that so that people could get data directly from you in the internet. Okay. So this uses what you call an OData or Open Data Protocol. Have you heard of RSS? Narinig niyo RSS feeds? Yung Atom feeds, gano'n. So it's just an XML structure, right? So have you heard of REST? Representation State Transfer. So in short, they're using obviously you've heard of what HTTP, di ba? HTTP. So they're using HTTP beyond displaying pages. They're using it to store or transfer data. Okay? So you could look at Open Data Protocol is a way of exposing your database data using something like XML technologies. Okay. The beauty of OData is since it's just sort of a service. It's standard and everything. You don't really have to use a .NET client to get data. Okay? So once you expose your data this way, even other technologies, other types of application could consume your data. So if you have any application like paper, hindi naman pay-per-view, paper download na data. Like if you are a research company, right? People pay you to do research, they pay you to get data, right? Yung mga SWS survey, di ba? Alam niyo yung SWS survey? Bayad yun eh. You pay SWS to do the survey and they submit you a report. Okay? So if you're in a company that would sell data for certain